either meet me there or I'll go talk to somebody else. And I had to like, okay, just get out of his way.
Scrap questions and
just go.
2013 is one of the most memorable moments in your career for me, watching you and observing what you do. Kanye West interview, where I'm watching with a team of people in our office huddled around a computer, thinking I would, for lack of a better description, be my pants, not knowing what to do in that situation. Did you know at that moment after that interview that things would change for you?
I knew as soon as that conversation ended that something had happened that I had zero sort of control over, which was a huge turning point for me, because I realized like I'd been trying to sort of assert some control over these kind of experiences, subconscious planning and architecture, little tools and things. But actually the really good stuff is when it's just wildly out of control, and the conversation can be just go anywhere that, you know, within reason that the artist wants to take it, and you shouldn't feel like you have to like get it back to beats. Like, but can we get it back to beats? It's like, no, it's like there's a moment when he goes, you want to talk about beats? There's no beats in the first 4 songs of Yeezus. And what he's saying is get past the beats. I'm somewhere else, either meet me there or I'll go talk to somebody else. And I had to like, okay, just get out of his way.
Scrap questions and
just go, right?
Yeah.
And so the next day, because this was the first time I'd really experienced that on that kind of level, and bearing in mind Kanye had done interviews like 4 years, and we'd been working for a good couple of years to try to get him in the room. It wasn't just, hey, Kanye wants to talk. Like, we had done so many things along the way. You know the tricks.
I was just going to say, people think that this happens overnight. That's fostering relationships. That's working it, and also getting someone like Kanye in the room.
So we were just planting seeds all over the place, trying to see if we could coax him into this kind of environment, and he booked a conversation, and then it got cancelled, which was fine. It happens all the time. And then it got booked again, and I really wasn't expecting it to happen. I thought it would get cancelled again, and sure enough, he came in, and the whole thing unfolded the way it unfolded, and it was like 2 hours long, and I was super checked out afterwards. Like, my brain was just in pieces. I was like, I don't know what that was. I woke up the next day, and I went into work, and I said to my producer James, this might need a lot of editing. And he's like, what's your concern? I was like, well, I'm not sure I asked any questions for a start. He said, well, tell you what, put the headphones on. I'll press play from the start, just the raw audio. And if any point you want anything taken out, or you just don't think you show up, or he shows up, or you think it should be changed, just pause it, make a note of it. He came back in 20 minutes, and I hadn't stopped a thing. And I took the headphones off, and I was like, it's fine. Leave it completely as it is. And that was a great lesson for me, because in my head, it was potentially unusable. And then it went on to be this thing everybody loved, and they got to see a side of Kanye at that moment, where his creative spirit was really loud and alive, and he was searching to change the world, and he picked up his partners in his head and who he wanted to work with.
What a mic drop of a moment, though. For you, as a career moment, from BBC, you move over to Apple. And now we're finding ourselves at a very controversial thing, in a very cool, I have no idea how you did this. How did you do 100 best albums? How do you even begin to scratch the surface on a project like this?
We work with a gentleman, a very creative, very restless thinker, who's always looking for new ways to get us to do good stuff. You know, lists are an important part of helping people identify, use some kind of filter to figure out what might be a good place to start in an area of music or in an area of life. There's lists everywhere all over the internet. Top 10 hotels to visit on a budget. Top 50 restaurants to go to in Australia. Okay, I'm going to Australia for a week. Where do I eat? Lists are a part of life, right? Music is difficult because it comes from the soul, it comes from the spirit, it comes from somewhere magical. So creating subjective hierarchy around it is always very challenging, but Oliver believed that it's important to try. And his idea was that the editorial landscape is shifting so fast, and lists are becoming something very different, and the idea of writing about music and talking about music is changing before our very eyes. So let's invest in it and see if it works. And that's where the idea came from. And I think the way we tried to look at it, and this really was hard to quantify, so it became about a spirit within the music, was, you know, how visceral is the influence today? How much can we honestly say, hey, there is definitely a before Lord and an after Lord. There is definitely a before Billie Eilish and an after Billie Eilish. There is definitely a before and after Kendrick Lamar. So if that's the case, you know, or you take an album like Lemonade, like, okay, there's so many Beyonce albums that could show up on this, and I think maybe two do. But let's look at Lemonade for a second. Like, not only did that change the conversation for the people who were involved in the making of that record, I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, but talk about taking back control of your life, right? It also opened the door for what has been the most remarkable time period for the Knowles Carter dynasty, you know, the family, the legacy, to just be so incredibly active in so many ways just beyond music. And I feel like that album is such a turning point for so many reasons. It also paved the way for Cowboy Carter, Daddy Issues, you know, working with Jack White. You just started to see that Beyonce was like shaking off all of this stuff,
all the
personal stuff, perception stuff, creative stuff, this stuff. And she was just like, I am wide open. If it's great, it's great. And that's why the album is like one of my favorite Beyonce albums of all time, because I just hear all of Beyonce in that experience.
That's the beauty within this collection. It's always subjective. You're always going to think that one deserves to be another place, but it's the conversation, it's the revisiting of these albums as an album form, because we're living in a singles world still, and we're kind of creeping back into albums.
I wouldn't have chosen the Beastie Boys album that's on there. I love that album, and there isn't one Beastie Boys album that isn't in my collection that I don't adore, but I would have put that on there. Right? So it just shows you that, you know, look, none of us got our way.
You had to pick a Drake album. You've got
We didn't
Joni.
have to pick a Drake album.
You didn't have to, well.
Because Drake's legacy is more than just albums, right? Drake is a global superstar, is one of the #1 superstars. He's like one of the biggest superstars on the planet. And sometimes actually when you're that successful, it's hard to really focus in on one album. And I think it's one of the things that people really get quite obsessed with about Drake is his success is so omnipresent and so complete that what is the album?
Yeah.
Right, what is the album? Like for me, it's probably, if I had to really pick one, it's probably If You're Reading This or Nothing Was the Same. But the votes came in and it was Take Care. And the vote honored Drake's music. The vote voted a Drake album in the top 100, which was really amazing to hear because he could have easily actually been a victim of his own success.
Right. Like too many good ones, I can't really narrow it down.
How do you pick one?
Similar to Taylor, though, because I think
it's very similar to Taylor.
Like Taylor, 1989, I'm, you know, all for it. But there's a lot of arguments.
Album.
I know, it really is a flawless
like
pop
it's actually
record.
as close to perfect, I think, as I can imagine a modern album, pop album sounding. It's the perfect example of, I think, an album that takes the songwriting ability that we now know is like second to none from Taylor Swift's point of view. And then also this experiment of like, well, hang on, if I'm going to be a pop star, I'm not going to sacrifice that.
Right.
I'm not going to leave that outside the door. I'm going to bring that with me and I'm going to make the songs, I'm going to dress the songs up real fun. But they're still, you break them down,
totally.
they are timeless Taylor Swift bangers.
I know.
Right, with an acoustic guitar, those songs are heartbreakers.
I know.
Right? I think Taylor is moving at such a pace now with her creativity and the success justifiable that is coming her way that you could stack a list like this with Taylor albums, but the vote chose 89, you know?
Okay, well, congratulations on this list.
Thanks.
Congratulations on this incredible career you've carved out for yourself.
I'd say the same for you.
I just enjoy that I get to sit down with you, just have this conversation. I'm stoked to see where else you take us and see what other conversations you expose.
I have no idea. If my boss has his way, we'll be off to some other crazy adventure.
This was a big one. This was a big feat.
This was a long time. This took a long time. We're all exhausted.
I mean, I can't imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to go to sleep right now.
Now you're releasing this to the world.
I know. Now we have to stand by. Now I have to talk about it.
You birthed the baby. Now you need to talk about it. Now you need to do the actual parenthood. Good job.
Did I do it right?
Yeah, you crushed it.
Like the video? Then hit the button, or better yet, drop us a comment. Then check out our latest videos here. And don't forget to subscribe by hitting the button here for more celebrity interviews and entertainment news.